Okay, good evening friends, Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Abayim. We are continuing in Meseches Nedarim, Daf Chaf Aleph Amud Beis. The Gemara brought a Shaila. The Shaila is Ravina Satravashi. If let's say instead of them arguing about 4 and 2, a Selah and a Shekel, they're arguing on 4.1 and 1.9 or 5 and 1. So it's either very precise or very disparate. So the question is, do we say, well, that's not a negotiating tactic, they mean business. If they're so either precise or so disparate, then they mean business. And the Gemara brought an example of a guy who is being pressured to eat in someone's house. You know, very often in life, people are pressured to do things they don't want to do. And the guy says, not only am I not going to eat your chicken, I'm not even going to drink your water, not only not from your tap, I'm not even going to use your Poland Spring machine. I'm not going near your house. I'm not even entering your house. So the Gemara says that you're allowed to eat in their house. I'm sorry, you're allowed to enter their house. You're allowed to drink cold water. Because when you said I'm not going to drink cold water, what you meant is achila ushtia. So the question is, but he said I'm not going to drink even cold water. The answer is, even when you're so precise and even when you're so disparate, still we say this is how people talk. So we should say the same thing by 4.1 and 1.9 or by 5 and 1. To which Gemara says, Amar le, so Rav Ashi said back to Ravina, Midami, is this similar at all? Is it comparable? Why not? Gabit soinen, by cold water. You know why by cold water we say the guy is speaking that way? You know why we say that he didn't mean it? Because tzaddikim oimrim ma'ad v'oisen harbe. Because people who are tzaddikim, they say little and they do a lot. So we're afraid he didn't really mean I'm not going to have a drop of water. You know why he said that? Because he's afraid that the guy is going to say, just come in for a little bite and then give him kesudas achashverosh b'shaitai. So therefore he didn't really mean I'm not going to have anything, but he said it like that because of the phenomenon that people say little and they do a lot. But but here we're still not sure. Dilma pachais misela v'yoisar shakal kamar. Maybe he would take less than a selah, or maybe the buyer would pay more than a shekel, ka'amar. In other words, maybe that's what he means to say. Uzrizin haba, and they're just trying to. He's just trying to encourage. The buyer is encouraging the seller to lower the price, and the seller is encouraging the buyer to pay more. So we're still not sure. Is he just trying to encourage? Oidilma davka ka'amar the nidra hava, or maybe he is specific and it's a good neder. By the case of the water, then we know that he didn't mean it. There's a reason to say he didn't mean it. There's a reason he spoke that way. But by the case of the negotiating, maybe he said it to be mazares, or maybe he meant it literally. There's a special factor by the case. There's a special factor by the case of I'm not eating in your house to say that he didn't really mean it. But that factor is not present by the negotiating. Maybe they're serious by the negotiating. And the Gemara says, Tibai, the question stands. We had this Lashon before Tibai, where the Ran says Lashon Nedarim is different, the Lashon of Nedarim is different, and it means Teku. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. Let's see the Ran. Says the Holy Ran. Midami gabet soinen tzadikim oimrim ma'ad v'oisen harbe. Hilkach mistafe hai. Therefore, this guy is afraid. If he agrees to have a drop of water, that he's gonna, so that he doesn't want the person to feed him a lot. Therefore, he says, Tipas soinin, I'm not even gonna have a drop. V'lav dafka, but he doesn't really mean it. What he means is, I don't want a meal. But over here, where this factor is not present, maybe he means straight up. The question is not decided. And we are machmer. In other words, this is a boy delay of shita. We don't know. This is a question that doesn't have a definitive answer, and therefore we go l'chumra. I guess it's a suffix d'oraisa. What does each person mean? Therefore, since it's a bayin delay of shita, I guess it would be a neder, and the seller would not be able to take less than 4, and the buyer would not. I'm sorry, by 4 and 2, yes. By 5 and 1, or by 4.1 and 1.9, we would have to assume that it's stavka, or they would have to be mater the neder. Okay, the Gemara continues. Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. These 4 nedarim need a chacham to permit. Meaning, it's not automatically not chal. You need a chacham to come and say it's mutter. Says the Ran, no Ran. Kamrita Kamid Shmuel Amar. So Rabbi Yehuda said the name of Rav Asi, these 4 nedarim need a she'ela. Dr. Asi, I think Rav Asi is mentioned more on this amud more than any amud in Shas. So you'll see if you like this amud. But so that's what Rabbi Yehuda said the name of Rav Asi. Then Rabbi Yehuda said, when I said it, this teaching of Rav Asi before Shmuel, Tani Arba Nedarim Hitir Chachamim. The Tana said 4 types of Nedarim. The Chachamim mattered, meaning it's mutter on its own. And you're telling me you need to ask a Chacham to be matterit? The Tana says, the Ran says, the Masha Shein Mutar Beloy She'ela. Okay. Now, Rav Yosef Masni La Hashmaita B'Hai Lishna. Rav Yosef has a different version of what Rabbi Yehuda taught. In other cases, a chacham can only be mater if it's similar to these nedarim. What does that mean? If it's similar to these nedarim, just like the nedarim in the Mishnah, they're not chal because we don't think the guy meant it. So too, when the chachamim are mater in other cases, they're only mater if they think the person didn't mean to make the neder. Let's see the Ran. What that means is, Rabbi Yehuda said the name of Rav Asi, that a chacham cannot be mater becharata, ela bepesach. A chacham can only be mater with a pesach. Sha'neder k'shi nitar bepesach. When a neder becomes mutter with a pesach, moichiach mitoichai, it is self-evident shehu neder betas, that it's a neder in error. It's like the 4 nedarim of the Mishnah. Ava b'charata loy, but not charata. Now we're going to learn, this is a fundamental amud. You see, Rav Asi, this is a fundamental amud in nedarim. What's the difference between a pesach and charata? A pesach is, if you would have known of the eventuality of something, had you known about the consequence, then you never would have made the neder to begin with. But charata is totally different. Charata means, you know what? I was in a bad state of mind when I made the neder. I was upset. I was down and out. Meaning a Pesach is there is an outcome of this neder that never dawned on me. If I would have realized that by making this neder, it would have such and such ramification, then I never would have made the neder to begin with. A charata is, I knew what the ramifications of neder were, and I intended to make it. I was not operating under all cylinders at the time. I was in a bad mood. So a Pesach is better than a charata. Look in the Ran. V'hainu time of the other Pesach mecharata. L'fi shekol neder shu niter b'Pesach. Harei hanoider oimer. The noider says, shafilu b'tchila kishenadar. Even in the beginning, I didn't realize this eventuality. If I would have known that this is the outcome, I never would have made the neder. My neder was a mistake to begin with. I didn't realize that by making this neder, it's going to cause green monkeys to come down from the moon and land on my roof. I didn't know that. If I would have known that, I would not have made the neder. Aval neder shu niter b'charata, when a neder becomes mutter with charata, einoi moitzei im atzmai shum inyan. He's not finding in himself anything. She'ilu haya noisnei aliba mitchila. That if he would have thought about this in the beginning, shelo haya noidar. He wouldn't have made the neder. There's no new information now that arose that if he had known it at the time he made the neder, he would have refrained from making the neder because of Ela shuoimer achshav. He's saying, listen, I knew that this neder would cause problems in my house. It just I did it anyway because I was angry. Mitachkas mehirus. I did it in haste. Nadarti v'achshav ani mischaresh nadarti me'olam. See, a Pesach is in good faith. The guy didn't realize that by making a neder that he can't go to the farm store. He won't be able to get the 9 new Haggadahs that came out yesterday. He didn't know that. How was he supposed to know 9 new Haggadahs came out yesterday? If he would have known at the time he made the neder that 9 new Haggadahs would come out yesterday, he wouldn't have asked himself from going to this farm store. But the other guy was in a bad mood. He looked at his finances and he saw his bank account wasn't what he wanted it to be. He says, that's it. I'm not going to the farm store anymore. Hey pal, but don't you know they might print 9 new Haggadahs? I don't care. I don't want to buy anything new. But the thing is, then he cools off and he says, I really feel bad. I said that in anger. So that's not as good of a heter. A Pesach is a much better way to get off a neder than charata. So what Rav Yehuda said in the name of Asi, according to Rav Yosef's version, is Ein Chacham Rashai Lahater. A Chacham can only be mater Ke'ein Arba Nedarim Halalu. What does that mean? Only with a Pesach and not with charata. Kasavra ein poischin b'charata. Okay? Fine. So now a guy comes before Rav Huna. So the question is, what does Rav Huna hold about charata and a Pesach? Amar Alei, so Rav Huna said, Libach alach? Was your heart, meaning your head, your mind, was it with you? Amar Alei, no, I was in a bad mood. V'sharye, Rav Huna mattered it. So what do we see from that? Let's see the Ran. Amar le liba chalach kelaymar haya libcha miyushav alecha b'shash nadarta. Rav Huna says, was your heart with you when you made the neder? V'gam achshav eincha toya b'nedracha ad hayom. What does this mean? Let's read this. Was your heart with you when you made the neder? V'gam achshav eincha toya b'nedracha ad hayom. And even now, you don't regret the neder until today. If from this day and on you want to be oikeret, the charata may kara be'inan. So what exactly does this mean? Okay, I think you read it like this. Okay, the Ran is reading it differently than I read in the Gemara. Amar le Rav Huna says, "Libcha alecha." Was your heart with you? Meaning, Kalaymar haya libcha miyushav alecha. Was your heart settled? B'shashan adarta? Meaning, did you make the neder even keeled? And even now, you don't regret adayom until today. You want to uproot it from now. That is not regret. Meaning, if Rav Huna says, did you make the neder with a settled mind? And now that you see that your wife is angry, now you regret it. That's not charata. That means you don't regret having made it from the beginning. It's only now you regret. That is not called charata. V'hava kihai gavna. If this would be the case, loy charata mekri. The charata me'ikara be'inan. So was it libcha alecha? Was your heart with you? Or maybe your heart wasn't settled. darta. You made the neder from anger. And now you regret initially. So that's one pshat in the Ran. Libcha alecha. Was your mind at ease at the time you made the neder? So you don't regret the neder, you regret that the neder is chal. So then it's not going to work. Or maybe not. Another pshat the Ran says is inami libcha shahaya lecha b'shashan adarta. Maybe the heart that was with you when you made the neder, hu alecha adayin, is still your mindset. Sharoitza ata b'nedarcha ad achshav. Until now you wanted it, but from this day and on you regret it. Basically, and what the guy says, I didn't make the neder with a settled mind, but therefore I have charata kishenadarti when I made the neder me'olam. Now, the Ran explains here. This is now an unauthorized Ran, but it's a Ran you need to know. Charata only from the beginning works. Charata now not. Even according to the opinion that we are posech b'charata. Because otherwise, what is this lashon of poischen that we need the bezdin? It's sort of like a Pesach. Okay. Now the Gemara continues. So basically, according to Rav Huna, we are poisech b'charata. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav Asi that we're not poisech b'charata. We're only poisech b'Pesach, right? That in chacham rashay lahater elakein arba nedarim halalo. That when a chacham is mater, he's only mater similar to these 4 nedarim, where it's a Pesach. It's similar to the heter of a Pesach. And Rav Huna says no, it works. You could even be mater with charata. So it's machlokes Rav Yehuda in the name of Rav Asi and Rav Huna. Rav Asi says no, charata doesn't work. Only Paschim b'Pesach. And Rav Huna says, no, we're poisech b'charata. Tanya, we learned in a brayso, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Oimrim loy Adam leaves. I'm sorry, I skipped. Hahuda asla kamei de Rabbi Rav Huna. Someone came before Rabbi Rav Huna. Amar lei. So Rabbi Rav Huna said, Ilu haya asar b'nei Adam sheyifaisucha ba'is hasha. If there would have been 10 people that consoled you at that time, mina darta, would you have made the neder? Amar lei loy. V'hi tirai, and he mattered. Question. Is this charata or is this a Pesach? Our Gemara says someone came before Rabbi Rav Huna. Rabbi Rav Huna said, if you had 10 people that would have consoled you, would you have made the neder? He said no, and he mattered it. So, does this show poischin b'charata or ein poischin b'charata? The Ran says a davar oyoim v'noira. This is in between charata and Pesach. Because think about it. A Pesach is, if you would have known the ramifications, I never would have made it to begin with. But here, if you would have had 10 people to console you, would you have made it? No. Shkoyach, though, but the thing is, you didn't have 10 people to console you. So it's a theoretical Pesach. Everyone agrees Poischem b'charata. Everybody agrees you could be Pesach with a Pesach. Charata, maybe not. Because what's Charata? Charata is, I knew the ramifications, I just was angry when I made it. This is a Pesach, but it's a theoretical Pesach. Because if you would have known, what do you mean if I would have known that 10 people would console me? But I don't have anyone, there wasn't anyone to console me. The Ran says, Gora mi Pesach va'odif mecharata. It's worse than a Pesach because there aren't 10 people to console him, to say that this is a Pesach. What do you mean if you would have known I wouldn't have made a neder? But it's better than a charata. Because what's charata? There's nothing about the outcome that he could say, well, if I would have known, I wouldn't have done it. You knew this was the outcome, and you did it anyway. But this is somewhat better than charata. Because if the taka would have consoled me, I wouldn't have made the neder to begin with. Okay.
So why don't we always use this type of Pesach? It's better than charata. Meaning you could always say, if Hashem told you not to do this, would you do this?
Right, if Reb Chaim Kanievsky would have knocked on your door and said, this is not a good idea, would you have done it?
So why would we ever use charata? We could always use this theoretical charata, which is a little bit better.
Again, if you you're only Pesach with a Pesach, then we wouldn't be Pesach with this. If you hold your Pesach b'charata, then we would be Pesach with this. So you're saying then, why would we ever use charata? Just use this. Your name is Asi, This is on you, not on me. Okay, so let's see a little bit further. Tanya, we learned in a brayso Oimrim loy Adam. We say to a person, Leiv ze alecha. Was your mind with you? Im amar lav. If he says no, matira noisei. We permit him. So that shows what? Poischin becharata. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi. I remember Misham Av. Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yossi, said the name of his father. I guess Rabbi Yossi. Oimrim loy Adam. Ilu hayo asar b'nei Adam sheyifaisucha ba'is hasha mina darta. Im amar lav. Says no, matira noisei. By the way, maybe we do try to do this, but sometimes the guy will say, yeah, even if a minion came to me, I would have made the neder. I had a reason for making the neder. Okay? Siman, the siman for the next Gemara is Asi ve'elazar yochanan ve'yanai. Okay. Hahu de'asa l'kamei de Rabbi Asi. A guy came before Rav Asi. He wanted a heter. Amar lei kadu ta'is. Rav Asi said, Kadu tahis. Look in the Ran. The Ran is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 lines from the bottom. Kadu tas, kolaymar, ata mischaret, charata, demeikara, milasha, and toya al rishaynois. Do you regret from the beginning a lashon of toya al rishaynois? Meaning, do you regret? Amar leiloi. He said not. He said no. Meaning, you don't think so? Visharya and Ravasi mattered it. So, here's the $1 million question. That means Ravasi holds Poischin Becharata. Look in the Ran, okay? And you tell me if this is not your page, Ravasi. Visharye Kasabar. Ravasi holds Paischa Becharata. But Ravasi before says you can only be Paisach Bepesach. V'chitema v'haravasi hu da'amar ein Paisach. We don't use Charata, only Pesach. Ikalemer Rabbi Asi l'chud v'Rav Asi l'chud. They're two different guys. They're two guys. There's Rabbi Asi and Rav Asi. How do you like that?
Cloned himself.
No, he contradicts himself. So the first guy is not a guy. He's an eminent rabbi. The first one was who? Rav Asi. This is Rebbe Asi. And the siman is Asi. Okay? There you go. Weiter. Hahud Asa K'mei Rabbi Lazar. Amalei Bas Nadar. So Rabbi Lazar, do you want the neder? Amalei ilu loy margazin li loy bin klum. If they wouldn't have gotten on my nerves, I wouldn't want the neder b'chlal. Amalei tehei kabas. He said, as you wish. So is that charata? Yep. Says Bas Nadar roitza atar achshav b'nidrucha. Did you want this neder until now? But from now on, meaning, are you trying to regret now? And you really wanted it the whole time? He said, no. If they wouldn't have angered me, I wouldn't have wanted it from to begin with. I wouldn't have made the neder at all. Would I made the nether? Loi bevadai el aidei kas nadarti. I made the nether out of anger. L'fikach ani mascharid. Achshav al shenadarti me'olam. Therefore, I regret ever having made the nether. So Rabbi Lazar said, "Hamalei tehei kedabas kolaymar shei haneder mutter kirtzaincha." Next case, hahiyitza de adarta lebrata. There's a woman who made a nether against her daughter. So she came to Rabbi Yochanan. She wanted to be matir neder. Amar la. So Rabbi Yochanan said, "Ilu havi yadata amrin migei rasach ala debartach." If you would have known when you made the neder what the yentas are saying about your daughter, if you would have known what the neighbors are saying about your daughter, that ilu laichamas ba'ima milan da'aziva, had the mother not seen in her matters of that she should leave her because of her immorality, b'chdi lo yadarta, she wouldn't have made the nether for nothing. Meaning, if you would have known that the neighbors would start chattering that obviously if you made a nether you must have seen something inappropriate in her, would you have made the nether? Amrulei loy b'sharya, and he mattered it. Now what is this? Is this charata or is this a Pesach? It's a Pesach. It's not Charata. It's if you would have known of the eventuality that you didn't realize to begin with. Let's see the Ran. Migeirasach shcheinos. Milan da'aziva. What does it mean, Milan da'aziva? Says Ran, Sharu'uya bekach. Liois ne'ezeves. That she is fitting to be forsaken. Shaloi tahana me'im, not to get hana from her mother. Memnei oisan dvarim. And that is all, folks. That concludes Daf Chaf Aleph Amud Beis. And next week, with the help of the Almighty, we do Chaf Beis Amud Aleph. There you go. Okay. Have a good night, everyone. Bracha.